Hi there, everyone. How's it going? It's Friday, June 24th. It's a busy day. I knew it was going to be a busy day today, but I didn't know it was going to be busy when it came to calculating overtime when you're working. Um, this is something that came up today, and I've been asked about this, I believe, 3 times, and I have a story to share about this file and about this calculation specifically that I think you'll find entertaining. And I'm also going to just briefly talk about what I'm going to do. So overall, just broadly, what's happening is I've built a payroll application in Google Sheets that works for all 50 United States and District of Columbia, where you can choose basically any state. And I'm just getting an email about that right now as well. You can choose any state and British Columbia. Nice. So it's for any state in the United States. Well, one thing about whenever I do these creations in Microsoft Excel or in Google Sheets, this one that does payroll is super resourceful and is amazing already, but it doesn't apply to every country in North America. It doesn't apply to Mexico, it doesn't apply to Canada. It certainly doesn't apply to provinces in Canada yet. Now, that's actually not that big of a deal. The Canadian tax system is different from the United States tax system, but it is a tax system and it's a formula, and formulas go into Excel and Google Sheets quite nicely and quite easily the way I do them. So I'm going to add Canada eventually is what I'm going to do. But I don't have to do that today, but I do have to do something else. And that's actually what the subject of this video is. And for those of you who are waiting for something about like a baseball algorithm or some other project I have to do this first because I want to continue to add to this really awesome application in Google Sheets and get this completely done because it's not completely done yet, and I've been neglecting it a bit. But let's focus about what the tags of this video are about and the subject of this video, which is overtime calculations. So this is a really interesting thing, and I'll get into the story I have about this. So I once was asked by a worker, I believe, in California, to help him calculate his overtime because he thought that his employer was screwing him on his overtime calculations. And he was like, I'm working ridiculous hours. I'm coming in at 6 a.m. and I'm staying, really, really late, and I'm playing and I'm working a ton of different hours. When I get my paycheck at the end of the thing, it says that, I've got a certain amount of hours, but my overtime rate may not be accurate, was what he was saying. And I was like, all right, well, I'm the super Excel guy. I have a payroll file. I can absolutely do something that will, figure out what your overtime rate is and what it should be based on the laws and whether or not hours are being recorded correctly based on your timesheet. I can absolutely do that. Well, I took that on, and it ended up being a huge deal, and I had no idea how crazy it was. Well, what's interesting about all that is that this is actually a really common problem for people who work crazy hours at a crazy type of job. And the employment market is so weird right now that I understand how you might get into situations where you're working crazy hours. Well, I went back and I looked at the video that was about this subject, which was posted about 18 or 20 months ago. It was in 2020. And it is such a complicated system that I had to review it independently to completely understand what's going on here. Because as you can see, there's a bunch of different formulas that have to be subtotaled to figure out whether or not your hours are overtime when considering them by the day or when considering them by the week. And then you have to keep running totals for the week and also running totals for the pay period, because your pay cycle might be every 2 weeks, but you still have to calculate what weekly overtime is. There's a lot of complicated stuff. And rather than try to really confuse everyone by explaining how all the formulas work here, because I don't even know completely yet, because I'm not done reviewing this, is I'm going to take this, which is applying to California. I'm bringing this all together now. I'm taking this crazy file that was applied to California, and I'm going to apply it to Canada, not Ontario, California, but Ontario, Canada. And I'm actually not even going to apply it to Ontario, Canada. I'm going to apply it to British Columbia. And so I will look up British Columbia and not Ontario's tax rates and what they do for overtime. And the next video I will do today will be about British Columbia overtime. And I look to go to Whistler maybe later this year because it's gorgeous and I haven't been there in 30 years. We'll talk about that later. Point is, well, how am I going to do that? Why am I talking about this? Why am I doing this video? Well, in order to have a well-rounded life and get a lot of things done, you got to set priorities, you got to do stuff. This is super extensive. This is going to take a few hours to turn this into a digestible interface here in the Google Sheet right here. I can't just take it like this. Can't just take this like you want to and then quickly reformat stuff. All right. That's in a perfect world where the AI between software integrations is so dynamic that it's smart enough to recalibrate all my formulas properly and actually do this effectively. Would that be a world where I can do this super fast? But this actually requires some effort, as well as understanding that when you're calculating this running overtime, it's so complicated that it's much more than normal. There's a reason why there aren't YouTube videos readily abundant that show you how to do this in every state or province. There's a reason. It's so complicated. But I pride myself in having the ability to take any mathematical algebraic equation, if it is math and it has an equation, to condense it into as minimal columns as possible and perform all the necessary calculations so that you can generate a result, which is something like a calculated hours auto or overtime hours or whatever, and to get this actually right. And so the next video I will do will explain how to do that for British Columbia and also go through how all of these things are calculated. So that's what I'm doing for the next few hours. I know it sounds like a weird thing to focus on, but it makes this payroll application in Google Sheets even that more ridiculously awesome. Like, oh my God, I can't believe you basically took an entire billion-dollar software industry that does accounting and dumbed it down into one Google Sheet. How did you do that? You realize that when you start using it, that they're like, oh, I just use Ken's thing instead of like, subscribing to this service that does it for me because like it's already done. Well, this overtime hours calculation and its integration, if necessary, into the cumulative records that make up this entire file is a very valuable enterprise. And that's why I'm focusing on that today, because I just haven't sold enough MLB algorithms to warrant spending all that time on it until the lineups are announced later in the day. All right. So we're going to continue making payroll easy, and I'm going to get this thing functional for British Columbia, and we should have some fun with that. So I'll see you guys later in the day.